Hi class, this is Ms. Bacon, and here's the lecture for chapter 13, all about medical records and managing them. So before we had computers, we had paper charts, as you can see here, and now everything is pretty much online in your EMR, okay? And the purpose of medical records, right, provides a basis for managing patient care. It's a legal document that protects providers, staff, as well as patients. And it's always important to remember that if it's not documented, it did not happen. So make sure that you document all your patient care with your patients. Now, who owns the medical record? So that would be the provider or the medical group. But patients have access to their charts. They can request a printout or a copy of their medical record. They can ask that changes be made to their medical record. We can have, parts of their chart or their entire chart forwarded to their new doctor or to a specialist. So those are sort of some of the rights that patients have as patients. And just remember, here's that HIPAA form that they're talking about. But just remember, when you have a new patient coming in, you have to have them sign the receipt of notice of privacy practices. So that just means that you gave them the handout that educates them about HIPAA and how their healthcare information can be released. So it would be for treatment, payment, or healthcare operation purposes only. And you need to get that receipt back from them that indicates that you gave it to them so that they are aware of their HIPAA rights. The other couple of HIPAA forms that we have for patients, so sometimes they come in, right, to establish care with the doctor you work with, and the doctor is going to want their previous record from their previous doctor. So you can have them sign the authorization to release information for a record that's going to be coming into your practice, right? So it's called an incoming record. And then sometimes the patient will ask for you to send a portion of their record to a specialist, say, for example. So then you would have them sign for the authorization to release information for outgoing records because their chart's going out. Okay, so those are the two types of forms that you'll have at your office that you need to have the patient sign before you can disclose their information. Now, in healthcare, before 2014, we were pretty much using paper charts. And since that time, the government has really incentivized us to make medicine all electronic and on the computer. So probably wherever you go, you're going to be working on an EMR or an electronic medical record. And there's pros and cons of both, but I honestly really prefer working on an EMR. I'm much more productive by using the computer. Next up, it's so important with your documentation that it's accurate. Really, really important. You can always, if you make a mistake in your EMR or even a paper chart, you can always correct it. So in EMR, you can go to that mistake and do a right click and say cancel entry or entered an error, and it'll remove it from the chart. It's really great. And then with a paper chart, right, you would do a single line, write error there, your initials, and then write the correct text or value that you needed to put in instead. And it's really important to always document all of your patient care, because if it's not documented, it didn't happen. Let's see. Now, it's kind of interesting with paper charts. You're going to have lots of file cabinets in the office, and usually the night before the next day's appointments, you pull all those charts, so that's part of your chart prep. You kind of put them in order of the appointments, and you would prep them for whatever the patient has seen the doctor for. And when it comes to electronic records, so at work, I have an alpha report in the front office that I print out. It's called an alpha report. And basically it indicates, everyone who's coming in that day, what they owe you for their copay, if they have a balance. And the chart prep that I would do in the primary care setting is, I identify if they have a balance on their account, because I can print out the statement to give it to them to try to collect both their balance plus their copay. So I do that sort of financial thing. And then when it comes to the types of appointments, so if a patient is coming in for a physical, we have this form that we want them to sign regarding their physical. So I prep that. There's another form that needs to be signed if you're a cash patient. There's another form that needs to be signed if I can't verify their insurance eligibility. And those are kind of the most important forms that I can think of. Also, sometimes, patients are coming in for a nurse visit. So maybe they're coming in for a B12 injection or their second Hep B. So I can get those forms prepped where I get, the patient's signature to consent for it. And that's sort of my chart prep that I do for the day. And it's nice too, I have a label maker at work, so I can just highlight someone's name and then I press F9 and my label maker will print out a label that I can put on all these different forms so I don't have to manually write out their name. So that too is really nice to have in the medical office. So definitely, when you're creating paper charts, it's very different from creating a chart in the EMR. And just remember every day too, like I was telling you, do that chart prep. It's really helpful. And it helps to keep the flow in your medical office flowing. So now this we talked about, right? So this is a paper chart. Just remember you're going to draw, if you have an error in the chart, no big deal. Just draw a single red line, not a scribble, because a scribble looks like we're hiding something. So it's going to be a single red line. You say that you write above it error, your initials, and then write the correct text above it. And just note too, when you have patients coming in, if they're a new patient, remember you need to scan their driver's license, their insurance card. You have them fill out all the new patient paperwork, and you have to scan that all into their chart to create their chart in an EMR. But if it's a paper chart, you kind of compile all those forms into a folder. So that's sort of a big difference between the two. Now your book, it transitions into the types of medical records that exist. And just know your EMR is going to incorporate all these types of medical records. So the first one your book talks about is the problem-oriented medical record. And I just wanted to show you, this is actually a snippet of Allscripts. This is the current EMR that we use at work. And a problem list, all it means is like, what are the active conditions or diagnoses that the patient has? So in this example, you can see here's the problem tab. If I were to click on it, you might see diagnoses such as maybe this patient has diabetes, or maybe they have hypertension, maybe they have high cholesterol. So you might see problems like that, that are chronic, that they're active problems and the provider always manages them or manages them routinely for the patient. So that's the problem-oriented medical record, and it's simply a tab in your EMR. So the next type of medical record is the SOAP note. So just know that when we chart a progress note, the subjective is really the chief complaint or the reason for the visit. So we can say patient presents with a rash for 2 days. And then the doctor will do the rest of the note. Okay. So the history of present illness, this is where the doctor will document more details about the chief complaint. And then the doctor will go over their active problems, go over their medication list, their allergies. The doctor will review their body systems. So definitely in this case, they're going to review their skin to look at that rash. The physical exam would be looking at their skin. The doctor will look at their vital signs to make sure they're normal, and then diagnose their skin problem and come up with a treatment plan for the patient to cure that rash, for example. So it's basically called the SOAP approach, but this is used in all progress notes. And I just wanted to show you how it's a little bit elaborated with Hoag and our progress notes that you'll see in the computer. Next up, another type of medical record is the source-oriented medical record, where it groups information according to its source. So all they mean is like all the progress notes are in the notes section. All the labs are in the laboratory section. All of the x-rays are in the radiology section. So everything's just organized. So you're going to find that with every EMR. And also, another thing you'll see with medical records is a strict chronological arrangement. So if you look at within each section of their chart, you'll see the earliest or the latest progress note up top and the oldest one on bottom. And it's the same thing if you look at every section, it'll be like the most recent labs, and at the bottom will be the oldest labs, for example. That's just chronological arrangement. So those are the different types of medical records, but as you can see, all of those elements are going to be found in your EMR as well as in a paper chart. So next up, this kind of has to do with paper charts. So if you have paper charts, right, you're going to have filing cabinets galore all over the office. There's 3 different types of filing cabinets. We have horizontal, we have vertical. Well, this lateral is really horizontal too. And we also have movable. So they're kind of like accordion. They open and close. And in terms of filing, right, so you can either file alphabetically or file numerically. And for patient charts, usually you'll see it, if it's alphabetical, it'll be last name, comma, first name, comma, middle name, and comma, maybe a title, like Roman numeral 3 or junior. And just know numeric titles go before alphabetic titles. And an important thing too, when you're creating their chart, make sure their name matches their name on their insurance card. It's very important. And like I told you before, right, we either do, if we have paper charts, we're either going to do alphabetic filing, so you'll have lots of color-coded tabs, or numeric filing. And that's usually used for a group practice that has a large number of patients. And for charts, you'll usually just see the name and date of birth on the outside of it. So in terms of filing charts away, usually you'll get lots of faxes every day for your patients. You attach that file to their chart, put it on the doctor's desk. The doctor will initial it. You then put that document correctly into their chart and you file it away. With an EMR, right, you still present that fax to the doctor, and then you would scan it away into their chart, into the right location, so that you're sorting it properly into their chart. And it's kind of nice, an advantage with EMRs is that you don't have to file things away. So I'm going to make another lecture to continue this, okay?